Thank you again for joining us for Animal Acoustics, Analyzing Sound Waves in Physics and Biology. I will pass it off to our fabulous presenters in just a moment, but I wanted to cover a couple housekeeping items first. First of all, the recording of this webinar will be available on our website in the next 3 to 5 business days, and you will receive an email with the recording link as well as a folder with additional resources and a certificate of attendance. I'll drop that link in the folder in chat as soon as I'm done talking. We'd love to answer your questions, as I said earlier, for today's session, so please feel free to drop them in chat and I can share those with Fran and Colleen as they come out. I'll be monitoring them the entire session. If we happen not to get your questions, please reach out to us at support@vernier.com for help.
All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Colleen.
You go first.
Oh, I go first.
This is your webinar.
Our webinar.
I'm here to have a conversation about physics and biology.
Anyway, hi, I'm Fran. I was a physics teacher for over 20 years, and now I'm the director of physics here at Vernier, and we're going to talk about sound stuff in biology.
It'll be fun.
It will be fun.
Hi, everybody. I'm Colleen. I've been at Vernier for basically just as long as Fran now. Before that, I taught in Houston, Texas, where I taught freshman biology and AP environmental science. And before that, I was a molecular geneticist. So you can see there is no physics in my background whatsoever. And the last physics course I took, I believe, was freshman year college, and that did not go very well.
I mean, to be honest, my last biology course was freshman year of high school.
And
I'm older.
You're a lot older.
So there's like new kingdoms and stuff.
There's kingdoms that didn't even exist.
They weren't in our books. All right. So we're gonna do some stuff with the Go-Direct sound sensor, and we're gonna do some stuff with the Go-Direct motion detector, talk about animals, talking about stuff that you can do if you have these sensors. And the giveaway at the end, or whenever that happens, that's actually going to be, you get to choose whether you want the sound sensor or the motion detector. So you might want to think about what you want to use that for.
And our goal for this is Fran's going to go over a lot of the physics of it, and I'm going to start relating it of how we can turn this and look at different ways of crossover into biology, specifically looking at different types of animal calls and some tips and tricks on how to best analyze those. And then it's not all just about sound. We're also going to talk about echolocation as well, because that's the one thing I do know about the motion detector is that it works by echolocation. And I know that purely because of the biological sense. So we're going to demonstrate how the motion detector works and then kind of use that as a model to talk about how different animals use echolocation. All right.
Yeah. So what is sound? So sound is the physical vibration. I need to be able to see that part, Colleen. Let's see. There we go. It's a physical vibration of a physical medium. So I got this graphic up here that sort of represents air particles, but it could be particles in a liquid or particles in a solid. And the speaker there is to show that this is something that's going to vibrate. For humans, it's our vocal cords that cause that vibration. For musical instruments, it might be a string that's causing the vibration, or it could be the movement of air over an edge, like a reed, or the edge of the hole in a flute. So there's drums, that's actually a whole membrane that vibrates, but those are going to vibrate, and that's going to push against air molecules, air particles, and the air particles are going to move back and forth, hitting other air particles, and that stimulates them to move, and this disturbance is going to travel outward from the source. So that's the basic thing. There's two sort of representations here. the little particle demonstration visualization shows particles that are closer together and particles that are farther apart. This actually creates areas, moving areas of increased pressure and decreased pressure. And that will stimulate a membrane to vibrate, such as our eardrum. And then the eardrum is going to, oh, we get to see it now. And then the eardrum is going to, in us, it's indirectly because it's got 3 little bones, and then it's got the little membrane, and then it's got the cochlea, and then it's got like little hairs in the cochlea, and then those are connected to the nerve that goes to your brain, and then your brain interprets it. But so it's depending on what you're dealing with, directly or indirectly creating a nerve signal to travel to the brain.
We have a comment.
We have a comment?
Particle motion should be circular in the representation, not linear.
Okay, so I got this off of the internet because I didn't want to draw it. So you can take that up with people who put images on the internet. And
Nothing else.
And honestly, I knew that waves in water definitely had circular particle motion, but I did not know that air particles in a sound wave had circular motion. So that's a new thing for me. All right, anything else that we have questions on?
Nope.
All right, so let's go on to the next slide. Thank you. We're going to do visualizing sound using graphs, and you can see on the screen here showing graphical analysis and our go direct sound sensor and a tuning fork. So that's what we're going to start with. So if you could share this screen over here, Colleen. Screen 1. Thank you. All right. So hopefully you all see on our screen some video. Here's my hand, and I've got a couple things here. I've got my go direct sound sensor, and then I've got some tuning forks, and I've got some tubes, and I've got this little recorder. I have this thing of water here. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to connect my go direct sound sensor. So I'm going to press on the little button, and then I get a flashing red LED light that says, hello, I am ready to connect by Bluetooth. So we're going to connect it, and there it is, go direct sound, connect it. And go ahead and click the sensor channels. There's a bunch of channels on here. And the one we're going to use first, well, the one we're going to use for this entire session is actually the microphone. We also have an older sensor that is just the microphone, but the other channels are sound level A weighted, and that is the same as our brains perceive the loudness of sound that we hear. So for example, there are some higher pitched sounds that sound louder to us than lower pitched sounds that have the same actual power to them, the same, well, watts per square meter, the same like amount of pressure. Whereas you do the C weighted, it doesn't take that into account. It's all right. That's how much energy is in that wave. That's what the sound level is. And then finally, wave amplitude, which is similar, but it's a relative thing. That's basically, we got in here a little sensor that literally has to turn those vibrations into an electrical impulse, and those vibrations might be bigger or they might be smaller. It's measuring that, so it's analogous to loudness, and that's actually really useful for figuring out some things as well. So that's really cool. But we're going to do microphone, and for microphone, you can just grab one here. So first of all, this is a tuning fork. I assume that most of you have seen one of these. We're going to have 2 pieces of metal that are kind of long here, and they are free to vibrate, and they're going to vibrate in this direction, back and forth this way. And you normally can't see this, so I'm just going to hit this, and so you can't really see it vibrating, but if I stick it in the water, you can usually see it kick up some oh, cool, right? Let's do that one more time. That's always fun. And you can kind of see how that, oh, yes, it is moving, even though we can't tell. Another way to show that, which I'm not going to do here because I don't have it, But if you hold this in front of a computer screen, because the computer screen keeps refreshing, you can actually kind of see the vibration when you hold it up against the screen. So that's cool too. So what we would do with this is we would hit this and then we're going to bring it over here and then Colleen would hit collect. So are you about ready, Colleen?
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead. Ah, all right. So, weird.
Yeah.
Can you guys still chat? Because we had someone tell us that chat was disabled, so I don't know what's going on. Anyway, if you look at that,
it must be going in and out. So I'm wondering if it is a Zoom
thing.
Mhm.
Weird. Okay. All right. So you see we have a sound wave represented here, and this is not what you might expect from a tuning fork. You might expect a tuning fork is going to get a really nice sinusoidal wave like we saw on the graphic on the slide before we went to this screen. And that's because we're actually seeing harmonics. So if you're using Graphical Analysis Pro, are we using Graphical Analysis Pro? We are. That might be an old one.
Yeah.
Try submitting it, see what happens. Oh, that's expired. All right, so Colleen's gonna have to.
Gonna do some background.
Yeah, Colleen's gonna find the Graphical Analysis Pro license and you can use this as well because that is going to give us the option to do an FFT. So how many people already know what an FFT is?
I only know because I asked you when we started planning this webinar a while ago.
All right.
Because I know physicists love it.
Yes, we do love it. It's a fancy math trick is what it is. So an FFT is, maybe someone said it in the chat, but I can't tell.
Sorry, trying to do too many things at once and I lost my mouse. Too many screens. Okay. Fast Fourier transform. Ah, thank you, Patty.
Right. So fast Fourier transform, and there was a mathematician whose name was Fourier, who's French, and he figured out that all sound waves, or actually all waves, all repeating patterns can be recreated by adding a whole bunch of sine waves together. So you can, you start with one frequency and you add another and add another and another, and you add them in different amounts. And when you add them in different amounts, you get different shapes. So go ahead and do the fast Fourier transform. Yep, so apply FFT. And now that we can see that in addition to the fundamental frequency, could you mouse over the fundamental frequency, please? That's the lower one that's really tall. Yeah, that one. So that's, okay, forget that it says 0 hertz at the top, that's still a bug, but 292.97 is the fundamental for this. Was I using this one? Yeah, 288, so that's about right. And then you see a harmonic up there, and that's likely what's contributing all the little wavies. You can get rid of that now. X there, yes. So contributing to all the little wavies. So here's a trick to make that not happen. You ready to collect?
Yep.
All right. Go ahead.
Ooh.
Okay, so what did I do? I put my finger and thumb on here real quick, and the whole thing is going to be vibrating like this, but other harmonics will have different vibrational modes, and it'll actually, like the whole tongue of this fork will, or tine, I guess, will undulate. And if you hit it there, you're dampening a little bit of the total vibration, but you're really dampening any weird harmonics that are on there. So that will help you get a super nice sine wave like this. And if you do the FFT on that, you see very little of the harmonics, and that's still at that same fundamental. Go back to regular graph. You can also apply a curve fit on here, and you can see what the curve fit, and then not gonna be linear.
Gosh, darn it.
No.
I'm so used to linear.
So go up to sign and get a curve fit. And now we'll know what some of those values are. And the one that's related to the frequency is going to be your B. Not sure why it's 1820. That's something that I'd have to suss out there. Anyway, so that's cool. Oops, we don't want that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Wrong button. Okay.
Okay. So that's with a tuning fork. We've got other instruments here. You can see I've got my recorder. Well, my recorder. I got it in the closet today, literally. You ready, Colleen,
Yep.
to press record again?
Yep.
All right. All right, let me try that again. So maybe I do a different one. Okay, that's better.
That's fine.
So what we're seeing here is the shape of that, and you could tell that it wasn't a perfect sine wave. This recorder, you could probably tell that it didn't sound like a pure tone from a flute. And that's because it will be, oh yeah, angular frequency. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Kimberly.
Yes. So anyway, it's not, it's a cheap plastic instrument is what it is, and it's not going to give you a great tone, and you're seeing that in the wave. So Colleen, you want to get out the viola? I'm going to move this so it's near Colleen with the viola.
And I know hopefully you all will be able to hear this. We've been having some issues of the lovely Zoom not catching any of our sounds that aren't speaking because it filters it out. So.
Oh, that's okay actually. That is pretty much what we see in like textbooks and other illustrations when you look at a bowed string instrument.
See, I would not know that because I never look at physics textbooks.
And I was looking at them recently in preparation for this webinar. So in music, this would be the timbre. So that's why people who are musicians, okay, that's interesting because we had an I didn't hear it at all, and we got an I can hear you. Anyway, musicians and many lay people can tell the difference of what instrument is playing by hearing the timbre of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So like, sometimes I'll be listening to the radio in the car with my husband who is a musician, and I'll say, okay, what instrument is that? And he'll say, oh, that's the tenor saxophone, or, oh, that's a, wow, or, oh, this is the, that's the really odd, trombone thing.
They couldn't hear the recorder.
Oh, and they couldn't hear the viola. That's interesting. Wow.
Well, get ready to not hear a whole bunch of sounds as we get into this.
Right, because the next thing that we're going to do is talk about animal sounds, because this is where the biology comes in. Animal sounds are also going to have these different harmonics in them. They're going to have the way that they sound as well. Colleen made this list.
So I went through and started thinking about the reasons that animals make sounds. And so, we're used to thinking of sound as like, it's a way for us to kind of communicate verbally, or with music, it's something pleasant to listen to. Now, different animals are going to make different sounds for different purposes. Probably the most common one people will think of often is territorial, where animals will make a sound to declare, this is my space, this is my kingdom, do not interfere.
So if you can hear me, get out.
Get out.
Okay.
Probably the most common I usually think of, because right now is the season for it, is owls. So right now we have a lot of barred owls and a lot of great horned owls really establishing their territories and making sure that also at the same time attracting a mate to kind of show off, hey, this is my land. This is pretty amazing place. We also have, you know, for attracting a mate, that's where a lot of bird songs come in. And what's really interesting is something I didn't fully kind of comprehend. I am a very large, big birder, bird nerd, if you will. And it's interesting to think is that in most species, the males will have songs and the females will just have calls or chirps to communicate.
Wow.
And so the male songs are just that. They're a couple, again, twofold, where a lot of times they're helping establish a territory, but at the same time working on attracting a mate. The other one that there's been a lot of great study on, and I absolutely love, is prairie dogs and how they warn others of in their clan that there are predators nearby. And there's been a lot of studies looking into that the prairie dog will actually have a different alarm call based on the predator that it detects.
So they're saying which one?
So they're saying this is a hawk,
or this is a coyote,
or this is a coyote,
oh.
depending on their different calls that they're doing. And there's some really cool studies out there that people took like basically like a shadow puppet and flew like, you know, a fake hawk overboard or overhead, and the prairie dogs made a specific call when that came overhead, versus if they had a coyote cutout just kind of rolling through the town. They had a different type of call. So they're seeing this a really interesting evolution of vocalization based on their actual territory and what they're encountering with it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, prairie dogs are pretty interesting. The other thing is really it's just kind of how we talk. It's them saying what's up, what's going on. And there's been a lot of work, especially looking into whale song and other species like that, that is looking at, you know, these really complicated songs and trying to essentially suss out different words and things that are happening around it. So it's a really interesting area to think about. Like, you know, we can talk about the physics of it, but then also kind of discuss, you know, how are animals using sound in different ways. And so one of the first things that I asked Fran with the sound sensor, I'm like, do we have to have a live sound? Can we have a recording that we use the sound sensor with? And what we actually found is that it can work really well. There's a couple key things that we've found. Is one of the things to remember is, unlike the recorder, which you couldn't hear anyways, or the tuning fork or the viola, is that animal calls are going to be a lot more variable. So there's going to be not just one tone, and usually they're going to be a lot longer and very complicated. So you're kind of limited on how much you can analyze. You can't analyze an entire song because of how many samples the sound sensor collects. It collects a lot more than a biologist is used to. We're used to like a sample a second. This is doing how many samples a second?
10,000.
10,000 samples per second, which to me just doesn't compute. So you kind of want to find sound recordings and basically get to a point in the sound recording right where you want to do that quick analysis with. The other key is finding a recording that is what we would consider like a pure recording. For example, going through a bunch of bird calls and other different types of sound files on the internet, you might have a lot of interference of other animals in the background, or wind, or a car noise, or in a lot of the hydrophone stuff with humpback whales and things is boat motors and other noises happening in the sea to interfere with that. So We had a couple sounds that I selected for us to hear and listen to, and then kind of look at some of the FFTs for that I thought would be fun.
Before we do that, we have a question though.
Oh, we do have a question.
Yeah. So it's no.
Oh, that's a good question.
So the sound sensor, because the sounds that we can hear are typically in the range of 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. And obviously we can't measure 20,000 hertz with the Go Direct sound. Because the range of human hearing, we tried to tune this sensor so that it would be able to pick those up. So as a result, you can't change that. Well, actually, I think you might be able to, but the problem is that you're collecting a ton of information in a very short amount of time. If you could, can you share the graphical analysis screen again, Colleen? Yep. And then go to this part right here.
Sorry, which part?
Here. All right, so there's the settings, and notice that the duration is 3/100ths of a second. That's okay. You can get more samples by increasing the duration or by increasing the rate. And either way, it's going to slow down the processing. So you might have to wait a moment before your data appear on the graph. There is in the folder that we shared, or that we will share, I'm not sure if it was shared yet. We'll probably share it again at the end, and you'll definitely get an email with it after this. It has a file that has a triggering, and it also has a duration of 0.05, so 5/100ths. So it's going to go a little bit longer, and we can't change it until we do a new experiment.
Yep,
so let's set up a new experiment.
Yeah, so let's say, and one of the other things that we have found in good graphical analysis, what I would call hygiene, is especially when you're doing sample collections with lots of data points like this, you will want to make sure to kind of reset and create a new experiment every so often, basically because the amount of data points that the software is starting to record can bog it down and cause it to act really slowly. And sometimes you'll think it's not working when in reality, it's just taking like a full minute to process all that data that you're putting in there. Again, something biologists are not typically used to unless we're trying to do like an EKG collection over like longer than 3 seconds.
All right. So I made the settings to be what are going to be in that file for you. And you may have to fiddle with the triggering. So I've got it set to increasing across 0.3. That'll probably work. We might have to adjust that.
All right. Now, amongst all of our testing, we found that the animals, can the sensor detect frequencies above 20 kilohertz?
No.
Okay. No, it cannot.
Because you're just not sampling enough data points. So it doesn't collect ultrasound. However, we will talk about ultrasound when we talk about the motion detector. Wow. And we've only got about 15 minutes left. So
oh my God, seriously?
Yeah, we got to keep going.
Okay. So we could not get the sounds to show up on the audio for you all, but I put links to the ones that we are using into this. So we are going to start a humpback whale song.
We're going to try turning up the volume a little bit. There we are.
Whew. All right. So one of the things that I'm going to do is just kind of quick go through and get a bunch of them very quickly here because we are short on time. So wrong computer. So we can rename our runs. And so that way I can do a bunch of different sounds and compare them to different species. Okay, so that was a coyote.
And while she's renaming it, we don't have written labs for doing marine biology field work with sound sensors. No.
We just,
This would be in the classroom, not in the field.
okay, and that was a crow. So just gonna kind of quick look here. So I just renamed all three of these. So I'm gonna put them here. You can see once we graph them on top of each other, it's a bit of a hot mess. So I'm gonna change this to 3 graphs. And I'm going to turn, the first one's going to be just the humpback whale, second one's going to be the coyote, and then the third one will be the crow. So we can look at just kind of the general profiles here. And then what we can also do is highlight, I'm just going to highlight from the 0 to 0.5 seconds, and I can now just apply my FFT. We're hoping eventually to be able to do it to all of them at the same time.
Future feature.
Future feature. And then, oops. Not get everything.
Got most of it.
Yeah, good enough. Yeah. All right, there we go. So now we can have them each laid out like this. And
this is really cool.
yeah,
I mean, I really like this.
Like now we can actually look at the different frequencies of these different animals and have discussions about, you know, why the crows might be in a different, their frequencies might be in a different area than say whales or coyotes,
right,
and talk about
a different range of frequency.
Yeah,
right.
And talk about, you know, what's the purpose of that, of, you know, how does the sound carry distance wise, and, you know, water versus air, and how the different sounds communicate that way.
And then I love how the whales are just like 4
Beautiful.
or 5 big frequencies there, and it's very melodious sounding.
Yeah.
It's very it's nice.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at the coyote and the crow is especially harsh to my ear.
Mm-hmm.
And the coyote, you can still see some of the really big ones as well.
Yeah. So definitely. And the crow also was a good example of showing how there's a little bit more background noise in there. So you kind of get some muddling of some of that as well. All right. So because we are going, this is taking longer than we expected to. I highly recommend clicking on this link to look at the AI learning of bird songs. There's a program called Merlin out from the Cornell lab, which actually has some great, really cool stuff to be able to identify birds based on their songs or sonograms. That website talks about how they did all of that. So
and to answer the question, we do not have a bank of songs from us, so we pulled all of this from the internet.
Yeah, and there'll be a slide we get to at the end here that gives you suggestions for databases that we have found through our searches.
And you'll get this whole slide presentation in the folder.
Yeah, so you will have access to this.
I don't think it's in the folder yet, but it will be.
It will be.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So motion detectors. How does a motion detector work? So it uses ultrasound. So any sound with a frequency of over 20,000 hertz is ultrasound. It's in short bursts. You can't hear the ultrasound, but you can hear the clicking of it turning on and off. So the sensor pauses and waits for an echo. And then this way of measurement relies on the speed of sound because it's got to wait for the echo to come back figure out what that time was. It traveled 2 times the distance, so it has to cut that in half, and then it has to say, all right, well, the speed of sound is this in air, so this is how far away it must be. So actually, yeah, that one. Let's go ahead and hook up our motion detector.
Oh, I gotta go change my screen.
Yep.
Again. All right.
So sensor data collection, because I've got my little red light blinking here. All right, click done. So you probably can't hear it clicking. I can hear it clicking, but I'm going to, it's sending out the signal and getting an echo back. And I'm going to set this up here, and I'm going to put up this book here. No, you can't see that. There you are. You can kind of see that. And can you turn on meter, Colleen? A big meter? There we are. So saying that this is half a meter away, which I think that's pretty about right. And what we often use these for in physics is for measuring not just static positions like this, but velocity and then acceleration. But I thought it would be really neat to try to do some thinking about how big a thing can this measure. So I'm going to replace my book with this little tea container and move my book out of the way, and it's still measuring about half a meter. And then I've got this little glass cube, and I thought I'd just drop that in and see if it still measures that, and it's still about the same. You can see it's not quite, oops, I fell over. We'll figure it out. So now I've got this thing, which is pretty narrow. I'm gonna drop that in. Oh, you can still see it. That's pretty awesome.
It's not getting the table behind it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
See?
Okay. It's not getting this. See, the skeptic in me is like, it's totally getting the table behind it.
Right.
But apparently it's not.
All right. And then I put this tiny little 10-gram mass on a stick, and I'm going to put that in place and see if it'll measure that. And it does. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, a bat can do it.
That's pretty cool.
A bat can see things smaller than that, right?
Yeah, much smaller than that.
Yeah. All right. So, and then, all right, I'm going to try a couple other things. I have here a squishy motion detector named Mo. So I'm going to put Mo in place of that. Let's see, how does it do with squishy things? There we are. It's about, yeah, it's measuring a squishy thing. And then I've got another squishy thing. I have a fleece jacket here, and it's not just squishy, but it's also kind of wrinkly. It's
not as good.
It's not quite as good, but yeah, see, it's kind of unsure about the wrinkly soft thing. But I thought that would be an interesting experiment to try.
Yeah. So no, we don't have actual data on the screen where you just have the meter up to show the position. We're not actually collecting data yet. But this is where you can tie in the ideas of what echolocation is and how that works with a motion detector. And it's really great for getting students introduced to how to do data collection. Those of you might be familiar with an option here called graph match.
Go ahead.
Where you can,
Go ahead.
where you actually can, it will pre-populate a graph that the students then have to try to mimic making that graph by walking with the motion detector.
Now I'm not going to be able to do that here. We don't have enough room, but go ahead and hit collect. And so I'm going to, see, I could go away a little bit. And then I can go towards a little bit. And I can go away a little bit. But yeah, I'm working on a very limited space here. If you look at the distance graph, that's like it's going between 0.4 and 1.4 meters, which I just don't have I don't have any room for.
So the idea with this is more not necessarily to, basically show a recording of how an animal doing echolocation, but being able to describe to students basically how echolocation works. No, so Graph Match is available using LabQuest 3s, and it is available on the free version of graphical analysis as well.
And you'll get instructions for a lab in that folder.
Yeah. So really cool is that with echolocation, this is a process that is has evolved in the natural world for animals to use in various ways. So the one that we usually talk about the most common is going to be with bats and dolphins or other toothed whales. And a lot of times they're using this type of echolocation to be able to find prey. And the way I always described it to my students, and it's great with the motion detector, is it's basically just how sonar works, is that you're broadcasting out this signal, this wave, and then seeing how long it takes to come back to you
From a reflection.
From a reflection. And that reflection gives those animals so much information, because it's not just that something's there, it's also that, you know, how big is it? You know, where is it moving?
How fast?
Is it moving? Do I need to adjust? So it's a really cool way of talking, like how animals evolved to be able to hunt in situations where, you know, they can't rely on eyesight. And it's a really kind of fascinating thing to go into. So I put some sounds of a sperm whale using echolocation for foraging and to compare that to a boat sonar. So students can kind of see the differences between that. And then one of the coolest things that's actually happened is there are certain people that have basically trained themselves to be able to use echolocation. We're talking people that are going to be limited vision or 100% blind, that have basically taught themselves by using echolocation to be able to find their way around. And this isn't just like find my way around the house. This is like, it's enabling people to ride bikes. It's enabling people to go running on their own. It's absolutely fascinating. And you can—
Oh, thanks for that comment, Patty.
Oh yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and so the next slide, these are kind of the references that we put together, that we were just kind of finding some really great information out there. So discovery of sound in the sea, that's where I've gotten a lot of really cool audio files on not just animals in the sea, but also fish. Who knew fish made sounds?
I didn't know that.
But also things like looking at other noises of like wave turbines and other boats going through the water, and how that can cause noise pollution to prevent animals from communicating nicely. The Macaulay, I can never pronounce that. Macaulay Library, that's where, through the Cornell lab, that's where you get a lot of animal, primarily bird sounds. The National Park has a great web page about bats and how they use echolocation. And then this is just a quick little YouTube video about how humans use echolocation as well, and kind of goes through the process of how people were able to train themselves with it. And it opens up a whole wormhole of information if you start looking into it, because yeah. So we're
done.
Out of time. This went faster than we expected, and we are very sorry about the little technical difficulties that we've been trying to work through. We're just going to blame Zoom on those. No, we have one more slide.
Well, okay, so the slide says thank you for attending.
Right. Yeah, sorry.
Notified by email.
Sorry.
So it's not a very exciting slide.
So we will be doing a giveaway. Our mistress of giveaways is not here right now. So
she's just flying back from her honeymoon in Thailand.
Yeah, I doubt she did data collection there.
Probably not.
So
she had fun.
But she had fun. So we will have a winner drawn, and Dylan will email you, and you will get to choose between a motion detector and a sound sensor. So one of our wonderful, awesome Go Direct sensors. And we hope you had fun. We hope you found this interesting. This is something that we kind of just were like, it'd be really fun to see this cross interest of biology and physics because we don't get to play together very often. So thank you all for spending your afternoon or evening with us. And
yes, thank you for coming. And thanks for interacting.
Yes.
And oh, we need the link to the folder again.
Yeah, Catherine, if you could drop the link to the folder again, that would be fantastic. And thank you all for coming out and joining us. And if you have
a great evening.
Yeah, and if you have questions, email us at support@vernier.com.